Hello and welcome to our session with friend Blair Renaud, who you may have met at VRTO 2019 in our conversation with Blake Harris about the history of the future. Blair is also the developer of Technolust, which was a VR game experience that shipped with it was a first day sort of release for many of the new headsets that we use. And he used to go to all the Oculus Connects and put together the indie devs and have a little gathering. He's also a founding member of Quantum Capture, who we met earlier in the show this year, and also Occupied VR, which is one of the most prolific VR developer companies in Canada. So today we want to talk about Blair's propensity for kit bashing, and how he puts together worlds from many disparate elements, but then also how to bring those together into a cohesive whole that not only works, but is cool and feels good, and how he can count on outsourcing the work without losing sight of the vision or the aesthetic.
Oh.
This is what it means to be a project manager, to be a director, to be a developer, but you're dealing with all of the aspects, from the mechanics of the game to the story, to the look, to the funding, the promotion, the marketing. So it's a huge job, but someone's got to do it. And let's get into it. So how do you do that? How do you bring in all of these parts and keep this thing from flying off the rails?
I mean, how do I do this without? I mean, I've done a talk just purely about this, about kit bashing and what makes some of the best sci-fi stuff you can think of the best. Has a lot to do with it's like the passion of the people working on it and the ability of the people who don't have a certain skill set to pass it on to somebody else, like you think about the original Star Wars trilogy. Lucas passed the directing on to somebody else for one of them, the best one in a lot of people's opinion. He let the model builders and the concept artists come up with what they were good at. And like it all came together and made something amazing. And then what you see happen later is he's got all the money in the world and he's got all the control, and he stops doing that, and you end up with the prequels, right? And I think it's you can see that across the board. You see that with a lot of like newer things. They're just it's maybe like one person's vision, and they're fully in control, and that's not realistic. That's not what a real world is, right? It's not all designed by one person. I mean, depending who you ask. Some people might think it is, but
so you're looking for people who are simpatico with the idea and then playing to their strengths effectively.
Yeah, I search out people people even search me out. They say like, I'm really excited about this project. Here's what I do. Does this interest you? And like I'd say 80% of the time the answer is no, but every once in a while you're like, oh my God, yeah, I want this. Come work with me, because they cover. Do you hear fireworks? It's Canada Day. Happy Canada Day, by the way.
I love it. Let the fireworks be a part of the story. It's part of the world outside the window.
I'm in my garage, so I don't wake up my 7-year-old daughter.
It's perfect setting. So I was thinking about a piece like Pistol Whip, which came out and was really successful, and Cloudhead Games made this game that was just super cool, even though they were using a mechanic that is essentially, like Beat Saber, audio boxing, that's kind of been beat to death, but they somehow managed to renew it and reinvigorate it with a really cool theme and a deployment that just felt cool. And we were talking about, how do you make something feel cool, not just functional?
It's not beat to death though. Like that's such like VR is so good at that sort of like exercise rhythm game. I think there's a ton of space for stuff like that. I had some ideas for stuff that I want to do with like turntablism and like throwing sounds, like a battle. Like you send off the sound and throw it at the next guy, and then he's got to like catch that sample and do something with it and throw it back. Like there's a lot, like I think there's a ton of space for that, and like, but yeah, it's about doing it right. There's some really bad there's some bad examples of that. I don't want to name them, but like there's tons that have failed. There's a few by like major companies that have done rhythm games in the past for consoles that didn't do well.
So that's the thing, is like what separates something and truly elevates it to the next level, where it feels good, where it feels fun and awesome and cool and new.
Well, this is what like what I was saying. I'm trying to figure out. It's not an easy thing to nail down. Like it's the dopeness quotient. Like what is it? I mean, Cloudhead is a smaller studio. They're indie, but like obviously, Denny and like their musicians have an idea of what is dope. So you combine like the right developers with the right music and the right like overall concept, and you can get it.
Why was Blade Runner so cool? I mean, it was a commercial flop in every way, but what made it so
was the new one.
Long lasting?
It was a massive flop, but yeah, it didn't. Why is it so cool? I think for the reasons I said, like Ridley Scott is like a visionary artist, like cinematographer, like just artist. And he made some amazing art and put it to film. But it's a lot of kit bashing, a lot of handing the right things off to the right people.
When I was working on the show 24, there was a white neon dragon at the end of the alley, and the guy that was doing the props said, that was the original dragon from Blade Runner. I worked on Blade Runner, and they had a strike when they were shooting it, and they had to basically iterate on the set and build the world deeper and deeper for these like 6 months while they were waiting around. And you had Jordan Cronin with cinematography, you had Vangelis's amazing electronic soundtrack, you have Sid Mead designing, bringing in his futurism designs, and all of those things conspired to build this like deep world where you're wondering what's behind the next corner and what's hidden down that alley, things that you can't see.
That's right. It's the kit bashing thing again too, right? Like you've got disparate people working on what they're good at. So like I was watching a thing the other day just about the graphic design of Blade Runner. My new graphic designer just sent it to me. He's like, watch this and tell me what you think. And it was like, it was just, he was really good at coming up with just random company logos and stuff. But like, it was so good that they used like everything, right? It's like, oh yeah, like it's so eclectic, like the real world, that like everything should have stickers and crap on it, like you look at my bike here and it's like there's stickers, there's graphic design. It's not just like a smooth, clean surface, nothing's clean, everything is used, and like there's a story behind every stupid little thing, there's a story behind the logo of like Ford's logo. And if you're doing a movie in the future, logos of some companies don't change over time. They still have that 200-year-old logo. It shouldn't be clean, like just because it's a car company in the future.
It's got to be distressed.
They're still using the logo they used from 100 years ago. So
yeah, you think of the show Firefly, which had like these camera moves that felt shaky and like they were being shot by a real person, or Star Wars itself, which in contrast to THX 1138, which was super clean, was like this worn down universe with broken parts and broken droids. And, it all came from Jodorowsky pulling together this ragtag bunch of artists that had all kinds of different skill sets and letting them basically go wild. And that led to Star Wars and Alien and, all of the rest of it. And how do you prevent that from becoming like just pizza, just gray?
Well, this is the part where I don't want to like toot my own horn, but you do need somebody kind of at the reins with an overall vision, right? Like they're not a micromanager. They're not going to get in there and say like, you've seen the clips of Lucas working on the prequels where he comes into the model builders that are making alien like races, and he's like, I think you should give this guy a little bit more eyebrow and pull this arm up over here. He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
It's fine. I won't tell you. But yeah, it's like a scene from The Office where they all just turn and look at the camera.
Yeah. It's like, get out of here. Like this isn't what you're good at. So you need somebody with the humility to know, like, just know something good when they see it, but not try to manage it. Like, I don't, there's certain things that George Lucas doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. And the fact that he doesn't know that is actually the biggest flaw.
How can you take control, steer a project, and give people enough without over directing them? I mean, do you have a lookbook? Do you create a Bible? Do you, in the VR space, you're it's all emergent, right? You're trying to figure out how the mechanics are going to affect something. You can't possibly know everything at the beginning, especially when you're a kit basher like you. So are you figuring something out and then going back and rebuilding, or are you sort of procedurally generating this process?
So there's certain things, like with the graphic designer, I was like, okay, I've got this brand. I want it to be kind of like a ubiquitous brand like Coca-Cola, but I'd also like it to feel older. So I want to have kind of like the Vault Boy from Fallout, or like big boy burgers have like a little cherub that goes along with the brand. Iconic. And like, that's enough for him. He's like, awesome, I got it. He sent me back some stuff and I was like, yeah, you got it. This is amazing. But like, it takes the right person that you don't have to say, I want it exactly like this. Because if you're at that point, but it's frustrating for both of you. It's like I'm holding your hand, and that's stifling, So yeah, it's about finding the right people, which I guess is easier said than done.
Well, I recently was looking for a musician for a piece, and I put the word out and I got a couple of submissions, and I went with the first one, and he did it 3 or 4 times, and it was really good technically, and it fit the track, but it just didn't have that thing, And then I tried a second person and they did something totally different, but it just felt so good. And it kind of changed the music for me. So there's really that way that you have to get out of the way and let people bring that magic, but you can't just expect a wizard to like walk up to your door every day and knock on it and say, hey.
No, but don't you think you're better off? Like, so you find that you hear that thing and you're like, yeah, this is amazing on the first take. Doesn't it make more sense for you to slightly change your project to fit with the thing that's already amazing than to try and take something that's already amazing and change it to fit with your thing?
Yeah.
I think that's harder to do, and it might not work. It's like if they went to Vangelis or whatever, however you say it, and like someone was micromanaging them and said, I think maybe change the sound of the synth. It should be like, no, like, get out of here. Like, but you make it work with the film. And I think a lot of like score is done like that. You find like certain composers are known for certain styles, but they're all known to be good. So you go to the good composer that you think will fit the best, and like, you just got to trust them, Like they're going to go and they're going to score the whole movie before you hear any of it. And I mean, sometimes they get rejected, but it's not, that's your fault for picking the wrong guy, probably.
So I want to go back to this idea of like how you manage a project like this. You've got all of these different considerations. You've got the mechanics of the game. You've got to figure out how you're going to take a player through it. What the end goal is. Is there a way that the game ends? How do you bring all of these people together and coordinate them and deal with Unity and what version you're going to use and updates and on and on and on. So is there a system, a process that you use for people out there who might want to try to do this themselves? Because I want to reiterate that you can just be anybody with sufficient stamina and resilience and desire and create something bit by bit until it starts to turn into something, right?
Yeah, I think it's it might be a weird way to work. So I don't know that I want to like try to impose it on anyone else. But you're right. Like we've tried, I tried using Trello and like putting stuff up to kind of prioritize things. But like I find what works best is kind of, I mean, some of the best movies have worked like this as well. You have like, I have a script in my head,
right?
And then I wrote down kind of like the major world lore that I can share with other people. But then it's like that stuff doesn't have to be at the forefront of everything. That's kind of the whole point of lo-fi is I want all of this stuff is true of the world, but the story isn't about like the main, it's not like you're trying to save the universe because there's wrongs, happening, because that's not how a world works. It's like you're just a lo-fi cop in this world. All of the other characters in the game are also just in this world trying to deal with their own stuff. It's not this kind of like epic tale. Like it's not a hero's journey. It's like a new world to visit is what we're trying to do.
Right. So you're giving sort of vignettes or tableaus or traces of ideas, but I'm not working towards a boss fight.
Yeah. Like, I mean, if you dig deep, you're going to know what is happening in the world at large based on just how the other characters talk to you and what's actually going on in the background. But that's all background. It's like the real world. We're sitting here having a conversation about sci-fi kit bashing in VR. Outside, there's riots in the street and there's COVID spreading worldwide. Like that's the world that we're in. But that's not the story right now. The story is this conversation. It's like,
We're more foveated.
And it's I think it's kind of an untapped thing in VR and like maybe games in general, but I don't think so. I think some of the bigger open world games, people play it like that, like when they play a Skyrim or even like a Grand Theft Auto, a lot of the time you're just kind of like in the world doing stuff. It's not.
Yeah, after 8 years of Skyrim, I'm still not done the main.
That's what I mean. Like it's not necessary to be like you're not. I don't want to be thinking all the time like, oh, I got to save the world. I got to kill a dragon to save the world. Like, no, it's like I'd rather just exist in this other world that's got its own kind of lore.
So, can lo-fi actually be finished? Is there a path towards like a deterministic ending that can be achieved?
I'd like the answer to be no. I mean, there's, we can put as much kind of narrative into it as we can, which I'd love to do. I want to kind of build for contingencies for like a lot of branching story. I've got a really great writer on board now who's written for Detective Comics and Batman and like he's writing the Titans TV show. So like he's a really great kind of narrative writer and he understands kind of, story arc and writing. But I want to have all that available to the player, but I don't want that to be the game. I want, like, if you want to get involved in these stories, good, do that, and that's entertaining. But I want you also to just be able to log in every day, collect your UBI for being a cop, and get, you know, like, have something to do. So whether that's,
So is that like a currency?
no, you actually have UBI. Like every
Right.
day when you log in, you can get your 2,000 credits or whatever.
Okay. Keep
Uh,
playing.
just for like starting your shift or whatever, and then you get bonus on top of that for whatever you know, arrests you make or whatever you embezzle or whatever you do. You know, but like I'd like to have it be a big enough world that you're just happy kind of existing in it. You know, and like these stories aren't constantly driving you through the game. It's like these are things that are in this world that you can do. So whether that's narrative or like, but again, it's like the real world. I have major things I need to accomplish in my life. Everyone does, you know, I gotta go to work. I gotta go like do whatever.
Right.
But you also just like want to play some video games sometimes. So like in the game, I have video games that you can play, or like in the game, you can like decorate your apartment, you know, like, so yeah, it's just, I know it sounds cheesy. Actually, I did an interview with Norm Chan from Tested, and I've been trying to say it's like writing a holodeck program as opposed to a video game. Whereas on Star Trek, you know, you see them, they're never playing a video game in the holodeck. They're like just existing in a world, and then like if they feel like it, which isn't 100% of the time, they engage in some sort of narrative.
Right. They have a job to do.
Yeah, but like Picard will just sit there in his 20s noir detective novel and put his feet up on the desk, you know?
Right.
And like if somebody comes through the door, you could say, yeah, I don't want to take that case. I just want to sit here and smoke cigars or whatever. And Riker would play in the pool hall, his jazz club or whatever, right?
It's just chilling.
So like that, I think, is what VR is really good for, that people aren't doing as much. But anyway, Norm from Tested was like, oh, maybe it's more like Westworld, you know, like all of these, the world exists, the characters are doing their own things, and you can engage with that however you want, right?
Right.
But I find it really interesting that like these like that's what we write as fiction about what is technically VR, right? Like a holodeck is VR, Westworld is VR. This is what we write about. So why don't we try and do that instead of like, you know, I want points and like shooting bad guys. Like that's obviously not what we want to do. So why are we doing it?
Unlocking achievements.
Yeah. So like, why are we doing that? I mean, I understand achievements and kind of, you know, incentive, like dopamine and everything. Sure.
Right.
But that's not, I don't think that's like the ultimate. That's not my vision of what VR should be anyway.
Right. It's like speed running Gone Home.
Yeah, no, totally. I get people that speedrun Technolots too, and they're like, oh, the game's crap. I finished in 20 minutes. I'm like, well,
right.
Okay, thanks for the $20. Like, that's your problem.
Yeah. Now, there's something really amazing about exploring an open world on your own. And having the time to contemplate all of its little details. But we are moving into a world where we have networked hand tracking and so on and so forth. So is this kind of world something that'd be more fun to explore with others? Is multiplayer something that you've thought about? Is that really hard to implement? Does it make it better or worse? You know, are these worlds meant to be experienced on your own, or?
No, I don't think multiplayer is that hard, but yeah, it's a different thing, you know? Like, I remember people saying early on, like, I find VR really kind of lonely, you know?
Right.
I don't like putting on the headset because I feel like cut off from the world. But that's why I like VR, is like to cut myself off from the world. It's like the reason you read a book, right? You don't read a book to socialize. You read a book. I mean, you can use VR for social stuff, and it's great. But I think you can also get a kind of immersion and man, I hate all these cliched terms. I wish I was smart enough to come up with new stuff. Immersion and holodeck and whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, yeah, it's its own thing. And I think opening that up to multiplayer, sure, it could be great. People say, yeah, I would love to hang out in the arcade in Lo-Fi or Technolust with my friends. And I think that would be great. And I'd love to do that kind of as a side thing, you know, like maybe put it in VR chat or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't have the time to do that. But I think if I brought that into the single player experience, it would muddy the water. It's like all of a sudden, you know, you're sitting in the movie theater enjoying Blade Runner or reading a book, and you've got some 14-year-old kid in your ear talking about who knows what. You know, it's like that might add something for him. It doesn't. It takes away from me. So I don't want that.
Yeah. I must say, with the Flotilla, which is what we call the conference that we're running in VR right now, it's amazing to be able to go up to my floating sky city every day and interact with all of these people. And they sort of create what the events of the day are. You know, there's this spirit of collaboration and creativity and iteration and so on that really lends itself to
right.
inspiration and new ideas and so on. And we have this world that we commonly share, but in many ways that's what renovates the content. You know, that's what makes it fresh all the time.
No.
At the same time, you've got to sort of watch your behavior or moderate your actions to play to the particular audience. I
think what you're talking about is a problem with kind of anonymity and the internet at large, right? Like the Flotilla that you've got is a very kind of curated group of people. You know, you don't have to worry about just some jackass from wherever coming in to disrupt you for fun. You know, you don't need to worry about trolls. In real life, you don't really need to worry about trolls as much, you know, like nobody's got the balls to just come up to you while you're reading a book and be a jackass. Where I think the internet just as a whole has that problem. So, you know, until you can get, maybe until it's like widespread enough that people gravitate to where they won't be a disturbance and actually enjoy it.
Well, then you've got like Tabletop Simulator. You can have your own private server and play with your own friends or whatever.
Yeah, no, you can, but I think the problem right now is VR is just too small. There's not enough, you know, like if I made just a dedicated multiplayer Technolust or Lo-Fi or something, I think, you know, you'd have a decent core group, but it's not enough to pay the bills. It's you know.
Sure.
And you see...
I'm trying to think of like any open world VR games that actually exist. I mean, there's Orbis, which is a MMORPG, and like Technolust is like not really up to date with.
Yeah, it's old. Yeah. No, I don't think there is. But it's a money thing, you know. Like you're not going to make a big open world game from a AAA studio for such a small market. It's just not. There's no return on investment, you know.
Yeah.
Like even things like Half-Life Alyx is really big and has a big budget behind it, but there's not, like they lost money on that for sure, you know.
Yeah.
It's
a loved game, but it's ultimately still on rails.
I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't played it, but like from what I've seen, it looks great, but it's like,
I mean, it's a beautifully designed world, but there's still a path that you're moving along.
Well, I can see that. And it's like kind of node based, right? Like it's you can't just wander off and go somewhere. You're kind of stuck within.
You can sort of sit and play in certain areas for a little while.
Yeah.
Now there's certain games that just seem to work really well, and they stand the test of time, and they're cool, and they're solitary, and they work. And you know, I'm thinking of like Fallout New Vegas or Morrowind. Or you really love Fallout 76, which is really flawed and came out to, you know, a lot of negative reviews.
It's still very flawed, even like 2 years later.
And then you have like a whole Instagram based on your life in there. Like, what is it about that works? What is it that makes it cool?
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I mean, because it's got a lot of the stuff that I want. You know, it's a huge world. I get to kind of build my own characters and have my own story. You know, like you get 5 characters on an account. I've got all 5 slots filled with like high level characters, but I like to like give them their own backstory and stuff, you know, dress them up differently from one another. They're all completely different characters. It's like my little different personalities.
It's your own dollhouse, Star Wars figures.
Yeah, totally. It's fully my dollhouse, and you know, you get to build your own little house, and it's playing Dolly. But you know, I can go out and feel like a badass every once in a while, depending on the character.
Plus, it's really good looking.
But I think
cinematographic.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. Should I plug my Fallout 76 Insta?
Absolutely.
It's like old _ 76er.
Right on.
That's me. But yeah, I think like this is like that relates to kind of design philosophy of lo-fi as well. You know, people are like, well, who am I? Like, what's my character? I'm like, I don't care. That's your problem. That's you. I want you to feel connected to your character. I'm giving you this world. You go out there, you know, like they're like, oh, well, am I a good cop? Am I a bad cop? Am I like, you know, what's my relationship to this and that? I'm like, you tell me. That's not like, that's like you walk into the holodeck. That's up to you, right?
Right.
I think people have a hard time grasping that. Just like they have a hard time grasping, like, they're like, well, what's the gameplay loop? And I don't have a good answer for that either. Well, I have plenty of answers for it, but I don't have anything like satisfying to, you know, the standard kind of game.
Do you think that as you build the game and build the world and bring in the story, that you're going to discover what the game loop should be or the core mechanic? I know that you've got all of these different interesting features now. Are they going to coalesce into some sort of gameplay? Or
I'm sort of resisting it. It's not a matter of like what, like whether it's going to suddenly emerge. It's more having the right words for it, like explaining what it is, you know, like
it's a marketing issue.
You feel really dumb saying, oh, it's like real life. It's like a holodeck. It's like, you know, like those just aren't satisfying answers, but I want that to be the answer. I want it to be, yeah, like I've just built this world and you can do with it what you want. It's not, you know, it's not
publicist to describe it correctly.
No, I don't. Well, I'm unfortunately that's me. I'm the marketing department and every other department.
Totally. I have to point out how meta it is that you're in this garage with all these sundry items and you're coming at me in this sort of pixelated screen. For a VR conference, it's going to be shown on a web page for people that are on a flotilla in space.
Right.
But you know, it's not so. Yeah, it's not so far from the world of lo-fi, you know, and I love that sort of near future tension, that combination of magic realism and speculative fiction, and considering like what the world might be like, and it can take various roads, protopian, dystopian, or whatever. But even more importantly, it's the passion that you have that drives this otherwise sort of challenging journey that you take. And I think about the little worlds I've created in VR and I've shared with people that I care about, and how powerful that's actually been. And, you know, when there's so few things that can still evoke true wonder in us, VR sort of restores that sense of awe and possibility. And I think that's its true power.
Yeah. That's the thing. VR is a very thankless medium right now, but the right people won't care, you know? It's like, if you have the passion to build something, VR is one of the best places to do that. It's not the best place to make money. It's not the best place to get like fame. It's not it's not the best place for anything except building worlds and like,
Amen.
yeah, it's just a new art medium, I think, at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're passionate and you have the drive to like see something through, that's the kind of person I think VR needs right now.
And that's kind of what I'm getting after, is that in the end, any person could technically pick up the tools and start to build a world, put the clay together, give it form, give it shape, find some friends who can do certain things just as, well or better than they can, and start to craft something unique and powerful and amazing. And if you can stick with it, then you might just create the next tremendous VR experience that the world needs, or that one person is looking for. And I've always looked to you as an example of that.
Totally.
Process.
It's like being able to share your dreams. It's like like a dream to you is super special, but when you tell somebody about it, you sound like an idiot. But if you could actually get them into the dream, that's what VR allows for, right? Like, oh, never mind my clumsy description of it. Like, check it out.
I think that's a great note to end on. And I just want to say it's always a pleasure to talk to you. I've always looked at you as a sort of example of what it means to take it into your own hands, carve your own path, find your own way. And if people did that, they can make their own
no problem.
Powerful, unique experiences. Yeah. And you never know which one of those will be the one that shows us a new way forward. So thanks again for being here, and we always
cool.
Wish you well.
Thank you so much. All right, you too.